The Justice Department is getting into a battle over beer. The government is suing the largest beer company in the world, and it could have a big impact for drinkers and much smaller competitors, fighting for every drop of business. Jan Crawford is at a brewery in Alexandria, Virginia. And Jan, this is a pretty interesting story. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Nora. You know, we're here in Port City Brewing Company, and small beer companies like this one are really encouraged by that Justice Department lawsuit because they say the bigger those big beer companies get, the harder it is for the little guy to get a foothold in what's an increasingly competitive beer market.
We have the grain, and it's mixing with the water.
As soon as Port City brews one of its 4 specialty beers, it's out the door.
We are in a fortunate position in that we're selling all the beer we can brew, and we struggle to keep up with demand.
Bill Butcher founded Port City Brewing Company 2 years ago, tapping into a nationwide boom in craft beers. The growing industry represents only 6% of the market, but as sales of large domestic beers decline, sales of craft beers are up 11%.
It's very similar to what happened in the wine business 15, 20 years ago. People stopped ordering just a generic glass of white wine, and they started ordering Chardonnay. It costs a little bit more, but people found that it tastes better, and they're willing to pay a little bit more.
There are 2,000 local breweries like Port City across the country. As they multiply, the opposite is happening with the big beer makers, which are consolidating on a march to global domination.
How different would Budweiser look than this? What's the difference?
That's a good question. You could probably fit this entire brew house into one of the tanks at Anheuser-Busch.
One tank? Really?
Even Budweiser is now owned by a Belgian company, Anheuser-Busch InBev. It controls nearly 50% of the U.S. beer market, with brands like Budweiser, Bud Light, Stella, and Beck's.
Bud Light is brewed to give you everything you want in a beer.
Now Anheuser-Busch InBev is trying to get even bigger by merging with the Mexican company that brews America's most popular import, Corona, a deal worth $20 billion. But the Justice Department is sued to block the deal, arguing it would lead to higher prices and fewer products. Butcher says the deal would hurt his industry by putting the squeeze on small specialty brewers.
There's a limited amount of shelf space out there, and the big suppliers have influence over what goes into the set. If one supplier gets too big, then they ultimately can have the opportunity to limit that choice in the market, and that's bad for consumers, and it's interesting that the Justice Department agrees with that view.
Port City is about to expand a second time, their niche quality over quantity.
This is among the highest quality strains of barley in the world.
They're sold in 3 states in the District of Columbia, including this D.C. restaurant that sells only craft beers, 555 of them. There's not a Bud or a Bud Light in sight.
We've been steadily busy for going on 4 years now. Here, I think that the craft movement in general in the country is growing.
And that growth can be seen as a threat to big beer. So what we're seeing is, for example, in 2011, the company that owns Budweiser scooped up the small brewery in Chicago named Goose Island. Now their target is Corona, but that Justice Department lawsuit standing in the way could have this deal in danger. Nora, Charlie?
So, Jan, if this merger were to go through, as you point out, they could control somewhere between 70–80% of the market. Do you think the Justice Department will succeed in blocking this merger?
Well, you know, lawyers who follow these kind of cases, Nora, have been really this one and saying it probably will go through eventually. What they're going to do is impose conditions on the company so that it won't be such an anti-competitive merger. Of course, that's anyone's guess, though. Right now, the company is really fighting this lawsuit. Some people say they're negotiating behind the scenes to strike a deal with the Justice Department. But what's interesting is that the Justice Department is seeing the potential anti-competitive effects of some of these big global beer mergers, and this time at least, they're initially aggressively moving to try to stop it.
It could mean increased prices for everybody at home. Jan Crawford,